Let's talk about a franchise that did way more than just create a game. It built an entire world. For decades, Street Fighter has been so much more than pixels and special moves. It's been a cultural force, one that has literally built communities from the ground up. No, really, think about it for a second. What's the very first thing that comes to mind? Is it just two classic characters on a screen about to throw down? Or is it something bigger? Maybe you're right back there, smelling the popcorn, hearing the clang of quarters, that feeling of standing shoulder to shoulder with some random person, both of you ready to prove who's the best in the room. Or maybe your brain jumps to something totally different. Giant arenas, thousands of screaming fans, and pro players battling it out for huge cash prizes. You know, the very thing we now call esports. But what if it's not that simple? What if the community isn't one thing at all? What if it's actually dozens of separate, passionate groups? Tribes, really, each with its own rules, its own slang, and its own heroes. That's what we're going to get into. Because the story of Street Fighter is really the story of its people. How they came together, how they broke apart, and how they're now reconnecting in ways nobody ever saw coming. To really get how this all started, we have to go back in time, way back, to a moment when the entire video game industry was basically on life support. And look, this wasn't just a bad year. It was an apocalypse. The market had been flooded with terrible games, people completely lost faith, and revenue just cratered, a 97% drop. The industry needed a savior, and in 1991, along came Street Fighter II. This wasn't just another quarter muncher. Street Fighter II brought something revolutionary to the table. And the biggest one? The combo. The idea that you could chain your attacks together in this beautiful, flowing sequence, it was a complete game changer. It added this incredible layer of skill that pretty much defined the entire genre from that moment on. And the game's impact just exploded. I mean, it basically invented the competitive tournament scene that became esports. It turned arcades from places you play games alone into social hotspots. And it got so big it had movies, toys, the whole shebang. It was a true cultural icon. And Capcom was smart. They kept the fire burning with update after update. First, Champion Edition, letting you play as the bosses. Then Hyper Fighting, cranking up the speed. Then Super, adding 4 brand new characters. They kept it fresh and people kept lining up for years. For a long time, Street Fighter II wasn't just a game, it was the game. But see, as the arcades started to disappear, something really interesting happened with that community. There's this common idea that everyone who plays fighting games belongs to one giant family, the fighting game community, or FGC. Well, it turns out that's kind of a myth. The reality is actually way cooler. It's not one FGC. It's more like dozens of different houses or tribes. Each major game, whether it's Tekken or Guilty Gear or even different versions of Street Fighter, grew its own separate, unique culture around it. And man, this quote from the legendary website Shoryuken.com just nails it. Trying to lump all these distinct groups under one banner is like, well, it's like their analogy. It completely misses the point and ignores all the rich, unique identities that grew up on their own. And these were the digital campfires, where all those tribes gathered after the arcades closed. If you were a Capcom diehard, you were on Shoryuken. If you loved Tekken, you were on Tekken Zaibatsu. If you were into the super fast anime fighters, Dustloop was your home. Each one was its own little universe. And here's the kicker. It's not just that different games created different communities. Even inside the Street Fighter universe, it's not one big happy family. Because the franchise itself was never just one thing. It was always changing, always evolving, and attracting totally new types of players. Take the Alpha series, for example. This was a massive departure. The art style was pure anime. The gameplay was super fluid and modern. It felt completely different, and it pulled in a whole new crowd that created its own community around that specific vibe. Then you had the complete opposite end of the spectrum with Street Fighter III Third Strike. This game was for the hardcore purists. The pixel art is legendary, but the gameplay was brutally technical. It introduced the parry, this insane high-risk, high-reward move that created a skill gap the size of the Grand Canyon. The community for this game was and still is incredibly dedicated. But all this evolution also created tension. With Street Fighter X Tekken, Capcom made a decision that caused a huge uproar. They shipped the game with a bunch of future characters already on the disc, but you had to pay extra to unlock them.
It raised this huge ethical question that got everybody talking. Are we being sold a game that's already finished, just piece by piece?
Okay, so that all brings us to today. The arcades might be a memory, but these communities, they're bigger, more connected, and more passionate than ever. And it's all because of the internet. Just to give you some perspective, look at this quote from 2009. This person is totally shocked that a really niche game called Bushido Blade even had a competitive scene. And that's how it used to be. If your game wasn't a huge blockbuster, good luck finding anyone else to play with seriously. But now, it's a completely different world. Thanks to the internet, dedicated communities can pop up around literally anything. Doesn't matter how obscure, how old, or how indie a fighting game is, there is probably a Discord server for it somewhere.
And this is what that new reality looks like. That old, disconnected web of arcades has been totally replaced by this massive, global network of local groups. From Alabama to the UK, people are organizing their own tournaments and meetups. The tribes are still there, but now they're all connected.
And you know what? The newest game, Street Fighter 6, seems to get this new world perfectly. Its World Tour mode is basically a single-player RPG where you don't just pick a character, you build your own. You travel the world, you learn moves from all the classic fighters, and you create a style that is uniquely yours. It's the ultimate celebration of finding your own identity within this massive community. So all of this leaves us with one final big question. For so long, Street Fighter was about fighting the person next to you. But now, as these communities have moved from the arcade to the always-on world of Discord, maybe the game has found a new purpose, fighting not just an opponent on screen, but fighting loneliness itself.